Part 1. Karen walked into Judge Judy's courtroom limping so badly. People in the audience actually gasped, but less than 30 minutes later, hospital footage would expose something so humiliating. Even the courtroom cameraman stopped moving. Nobody knew it yet. Not the audience, not the bailiff, not even the man she was suing. Because at first, she looked believable, very believable. And honestly, that's what made this case dangerous, because the most convincing lies are usually wrapped inside emotion, pain, tears, fear. And the woman slowly stepping into Judge Judy's courtroom that morning looked like she was in agony. Mid-40s, expensive clothes, dinar purse, large knee brace wrapped tightly around her right leg, and every single step looked painful, slow, careful, fragile. The audience immediately softened toward her. That's human psychology. Vivital suffering creates instant emotional sympathy, and manipulative people know that very well. Judge Judy noticed the limp immediately, but she also noticed something else, something tiny, something most people completely missed. The woman kept looking sideways before every painful step. Now pay attention carefully, because this small detail becomes extremely important later. People genuinely struggling with physical pain usually focus inward. Their attention stays on movement, balance, discomfort. But this woman kept checking who was watching her. That's different, very different. The bailiff called the case, and the woman slowly lowered herself into her chair with a dramatic wince, almost too dramatic. A few people in the audience visibly reacted. One older woman even shook her head sympathetically. And honestly, at this point, courtroom already emotionally believed Karen. That matters more than people realize, because courtrooms aren't just legal environments. They're emotional environments, and emotional first impressions can shape everything. Judge Judy looked down at the paperwork calmly, then looked back up, silent, watching, studying. The man sitting across from Karen looked exhausted already. Late 30s, construction worker, rough hands, sunburned skin. The kind of face that looked permanently tired from physical labor. And unlike Karen, he looked nervous, very nervous. Judge Judy noticed that too. "What's your name?" she asked Karen calmly. Melissa, soft voice, careful breathing, another performance layer. Psychologically speaking, people exaggerating vulnerability often unconsciously slow their speech patterns to appear more fragile. And honestly, Melissa was doing it perfectly. "I was injured because of his negligence," she whispered emotionally. The construction worker immediately shook his head, hard, fast, frustrated. Judge Judy raised one finger instantly. "You'll speak when I ask you to." Silence returned immediately, but then something strange happened. Melissa touched her knee brace dramatically and accidentally used the wrong leg first. Tiny mistake, almost invisible, but Judge Judy caught it immediately, and her expression changed, very slightly. Not enough for most people to notice, but enough, because experienced judges understand something critical. Real pain is consistent. Fake pain requires memory. Judge Judy leaned back slowly. "How were you injured?" Melissa took a slow breath, and suddenly, her entire emotional energy changed, almost theatrical. "He hit my car," she whispered Bapaz, "and my life hasn't been the same since." Notice the wording. Not, "my knee was injured." Not, "I needed surgery." Instead, "my life hasn't been the same." That's emotional expansion language, a manipulation technique designed to maximize sympathy before facts are introduced. And honestly, Judge Judy was already analyzing her psychologically. The construction worker finally spoke. "She's lying." The courtroom shifted instantly. Melissa looked shocked, offended, almost insulted. And then came the tears, fast tears, too fast. Now this is where things became disturbing, because emotional manipulation often works through escalation. The moment skepticism appears, emotional display intensifies. Melissa grabbed tissues dramatically. "I can barely walk," she whispered. The audience visibly softened again. But Judge Judy didn't move, didn't react, didn't comfort her. She just watched. And honestly, that silence started making Melissa uncomfortable, because manipulative personalities usually expect emotional reassurance quickly, especially after visible tears. But Judge Judy gave her nothing, just observation, cold observation. The construction worker leaned forward slightly. "You should ask about the hospital." And suddenly, everything changed. Melissa froze instantly, just for half a second, but fear reactions happen fast. And Judge Judy saw it immediately. So did the audience. Interesting, very interesting. Judge Judy slowly turned toward him. "What about the hospital?" The man swallowed hard, then quietly answered. "They released footage." Silence, pure silence, and for the first time since entering court, Melissa stopped performing pain completely. Her eyes changed instantly. Now pay attention carefully, because this is the exact moment Judge Judy realized something was wrong. Melissa didn't look angry. She looked scared, very scared. And fear tells the truth long before words do. Judge Judy folded her arms slowly. What kind of footage? The construction worker reached into a folder with visibly shaking hands, security footage stills, hospital parking lot images. And suddenly, Melissa interrupted aggressively. That proves nothing. Too fast. Way too fast. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed immediately, because innocent people usually ask, what footage? But guilty people often attack evidence before it's even explained. Classic panic response. The audience could feel the tension changing now. Even the bailiff looked more alert. Judge Judy stared directly at Melissa, and suddenly, entire courtroom went quiet, dangerously quiet, because Melissa had stopped limping emotionally too. No more soft breathing, no more trembling voice, no more fragile posture, just tension, tension. And honestly, the transformation was unsettling. Judge Judy noticed it immediately, because manipulative performances often collapse the moment control disappears. The construction worker slowly slid the papers forward. She told insurance she couldn't walk normally after the accident. Melissa immediately looked down. Another bad sign. Judge Judy picked up the photographs carefully, silent, watching, analyzing, and then her expression changed completely, not emotionally, psychologically, because suddenly, Judge Judy wasn't studying an injury case anymore. She was studying deception, and what she saw in those hospital images made her slowly remove her glasses. The courtroom froze, because everyone knew that look. That was Judge Judy's "something is very wrong here" expression. Melissa started breathing harder now, and honestly, for the first time all morning, she didn't look injured. She looked trapped. Then Judge Judy quietly asked 6 words that terrified Melissa instantly. "Why are you running here?" And suddenly, courtroom exploded into whispers. The whispering inside the courtroom became so loud, Judge Judy had to raise her hand for silence. And honestly, that almost never happens this early in a hearing. But the moment people heard the word running, everything changed psychologically, because 5 minutes earlier, Melissa looked like a helpless victim. Now, the courtroom didn't know what to believe. Melissa's face lost color instantly. Not embarrassment, fear, real fear. And Judge Judy noticed it immediately. Now pay attention carefully, because this next moment reveals something terrifying about manipulation psychology. Melissa didn't deny the footage. She didn't ask what video they were talking about. She didn't even look confused. Instead, she attacked emotionally. "That's not fair," she snapped suddenly. Huge mistake. Massive mistake. Because emotionally manipulative people often switch from victimhood to aggression. The moment control starts slipping away. And the transformation can happen fast. The audience felt it immediately. Even the emotional energy around her changed. The fragile, injured woman? Gone. Now she looked defensive, cornered. Judge Judy remained completely calm, which honestly made the tension even worse, because powerful judges don't need loud reactions. Silence is usually enough. Judge Judy slowly placed the hospital photos onto the desk, then looked directly at Melissa cold, observant, generously patient. "You told this court you can barely walk." Melissa swallowed hard. "Yes." Judge Judy tapped one photo carefully. "Then why are you sprinting across a hospital parking lot carrying coffee?" Silence. Pure silence. The audience froze instantly, and Melissa's breathing visibly changed, because now everybody understood something horrifying. The footage existed. Real footage. And honestly, that realization hit the courtroom like a truck. The construction worker sitting across from her looked emotionally exhausted now. Not angry. Exhausted. That detail pull matters, because people falsely accused for long periods often stop looking aggressive. They start looking defeated. And Judge Judy noticed that too. Melissa tried laughing nervously. "Bad move, very bad move." "That was adrenaline," she said quickly. Too quickly. Noticed the pattern here. Every answer Melissa gave came instantly. Rehearsed people answer fast. Truthful people usually think first. Judge Judy leaned back slowly. "Adrenaline?" Melissa nodded rapidly. "Yes, people react differently after trauma." Interesting answer. Smart answer, even. But something still felt wrong. And honestly, Judge Judy already knew it, because Melissa wasn't behaving like someone traumatized. She was behaving like someone strategically adapting. Huge difference. The construction worker suddenly spoke again. She forgot the cameras were outside. Boom. The courtroom erupted again. Melissa immediately snapped toward him, and for the first time all morning, audience saw pure rage on her face. Not pain, not sadness. Rage. Now this is where things became psychologically fascinating, because emotionally manipulative personalities often reveal their real emotional state the second public image collapses. And Melissa's image was collapsing fast. Judge Judy narrowed her eyes. "Do not look at him like that." Melissa immediately turned back forward, trying to regain control, trying to look emotional again. But honestly, It was too late. The courtroom had already seen the mask slip. Judge Judy picked up another photograph, then another, then another. Each image showed something worse. Melissa walking normally. Melissa carrying heavy shopping bags. Melissa stepping off curbs without difficulty. Melissa laughing while standing outside the hospital. And suddenly, entire injury narratives started falling apart publicly. The audience could feel it happening. You could actually see people shifting emotionally in their seats, because moments earlier, they pitied her. Now, they felt manipulated, and that emotional reversal is powerful. Very powerful. Judge Judy removed her glasses slowly again, that dangerous calm returning to her face. How long have you been claiming severe mobility issues? Melissa hesitated. First real hesitation all morning. Bad sign. About 4 months. Judge Judy nodded slowly. And how long ago was this hospital footage recorded? The construction worker answered quietly. 2 days after the accident. The courtroom exploded again. Even the bailiff looked stunned now, because suddenly, this wasn't exaggeration anymore. This looked intentional, calculated, planned. Melissa shook her head quickly. You don't understand chronic pain. Another emotional redirect, very common psychologically, when factual evidence becomes dangerous. Manipulative personalities often pivot toward emotional complexity. Confusion protects them. Judge Judy stayed calm, but sharper now. Then help me understand. Silence. Melissa opened her mouth, closed it again, and honestly, that terrified her more than the footage itself, because manipulative people survive through narrative control. And for the first time, Melissa had lost control of the narrative completely. The construction worker suddenly leaned forward, and what he said next changed everything. She tried this before. The courtroom froze instantly. Melissa's face turned pale. Judge Judy looked up slowly. What did you just say? Long silence. Dangerous. Silence. The construction worker swallowed hard, then quietly answered. She filed another injury claim 3 years ago. Boom. The emotional atmosphere inside the courtroom became explosive because now the audience wasn't looking at a confused victim anymore. They were looking at a possible scam artist. Melissa immediately interrupted. That case was legitimate. Too aggressive. Too emotional. Too fast. Judge Judy raised one finger instantly. You'll speak when I ask. Dead silence returned immediately, and, honestly, Melissa looked terrified now, not nervous, terrified because suddenly, courtroom wasn't questioning her injury anymore. It was questioning her pattern. And patterns are dangerous, especially in fraud cases. Judge Judy slowly flipped through the paperwork again, then stopped suddenly, and what happened next made the entire courtroom uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. Judge Judy stared silently at one specific document for almost 10 seconds. No talking, no movement, just silence, the kind of silence that makes people panic. Melissa's breathing became shaky again. Your Honor, Judge Judy cut her off immediately. Did you tell the insurance company you couldn't work? Silence. Melissa blinked rapidly. Yes. Judge Judy slowly lifted another paper, and yet according to this pause, you attended a dance fitness class 4 days later. The courtroom erupted. Actual gasps. One woman in the audience covered her mouth instantly. Even the cameraman visibly shifted because suddenly, case became humiliating, publicly humiliating, and Melissa knew it. You could see the panic spreading across her face now. Judge Judy stared at her coldly, and, honestly, at this point, Judge Judy already knew the truth. But then, something happened nobody expected. Melissa started crying, violently, not soft tears anymore, full emotional collapse. And that's when Judge Judy noticed something deeply disturbing. Melissa only cried after getting caught, not before, which psychologically suggests something important. The emotion wasn't pain, it was consequence. Then Melissa whispered 7 words. That changed the entire direction of the case. I didn't think it would go this far, and suddenly, Judge Judy stopped writing completely. Melissa's hands were shaking now, not slightly, violently. The kind of shaking people get when their carefully controlled story suddenly collapses in public. And, honestly, the entire courtroom could feel it happening in real time. Judge Judy slowly set her pen down. That tiny movement alone made the room even quieter, because experienced courtroom audiences know something important. When Judge Judy stops writing, she's no longer gathering information. She's analyzing character, and Melissa knew it. You could see it in her face. The confidence was gone. The fragile victim act was gone. Now there was only panic or panic. Judge Judy leaned back slowly, eyes fixed directly on Melissa. I didn't think what would go this far. Silence. Melissa looked down immediately. Classic avoidance behavior. Psychologically speaking, people avoiding eye contact after partial confessions are usually calculating damage control, not truth. And honestly, Judge Judy already knew that the construction worker sitting across from her looked emotionally drained now. Not victorious. Drained. That detail matters because truly innocent people falsely accused over long periods often stop wanting revenge. They just want relief. Melissa wiped tears from her face quickly, then whispered, "I was hurt." Interesting. Very interesting. Because manipulative personalities often mix small truths inside large lies. That makes deception emotionally believable. Judge Judy nodded slowly. "Nobody said you weren't hurt." Boom, that sentence hit the courtroom hard. Because suddenly case wasn't about whether Melissa experienced pain. It was about exaggeration, manipulation, fraud. Huge difference. Melissa realized it immediately. And, honestly, that realization terrified her. Judge Judy folded her hands together carefully. "But I think you exaggerated your injuries for money." Dead silence. The audience froze. The construction worker closed his eyes briefly, like someone finally hearing the truth spoken out loud. And Melissa completely froze. Now this is where things became psychologically fascinating. Because instead of denying the accusation immediately, Melissa started calculating. You could see it. Her eyes moving rapidly, breathing changing, mind racing. Manipulative personalities often do this when cornered. They stop reacting emotionally and start searching for escape routes. Judge Judy noticed instantly. Then she asked the question that shattered Melissa emotionally. "How much money were you hoping to get?" Melissa's eyes widened instantly. Fear response. Hudge 1. And honestly, that reaction answered the question before she even spoke. The audience felt it too. Judge Judy leaned forward slightly. "How much?" Melissa swallowed hard. "I don't know." Lie. Obvious lie. Judge Judy knew it immediately. So did everyone else. Because people pursuing lawsuits always think about numbers. Always. Especially emotionally manipulative plaintiffs. Judge Judy picked up another document carefully, then looked directly at Melissa. "You demanded $90,000 from his insurance company." Boom, actual gasps filled the courtroom. 90,000. Suddenly the entire case felt different, bigger, more deliberate, more calculated. The construction worker rubbed his face with exhausted hands. And honestly, for the first time, people in the audience started looking at him sympathetically. Not Melissa. The emotional reversal was complete. Judge Judy's voice became colder now, more controlled, more dangerous. "Did your doctor ever tell you that you couldn't walk?" Melissa hesitated again. Another bad sign. "No." "And did your doctor prescribe bed rest?" "No." "Did your doctor forbid exercise?" Long pause, then quietly, "No." Judge Judy slowly removed her glasses again. And honestly, that terrified Melissa more than shouting ever could. Because disappointment from powerful authority figures hits manipulators differently than anger. Anger creates conflict. Disappointment creates exposure. Judge Judy stared at her silently for several seconds, and the silence itself became painful. Then, Judge Judy asked the question nobody expected. "Why did you choose him?" The construction worker looked confused instantly. Melissa looked terrified. Now pay attention carefully, because this moment changes the entire emotional direction of the case. Judge Judy wasn't asking about the accident anymore. She was asking about targeting, predatory selection. Psychologically manipulative personalities often choose victims strategically. Quiet people, hardworking people, people unlikely to fight back aggressively. And Judge Judy had clearly started suspecting exactly that. Melissa blinked rapidly. "What?" Judge Judy didn't move. "Why him?" Silence. The construction worker looked down slowly, almost like he already knew the answer. And honestly, that detail broke the courtroom emotionally, because suddenly, he didn't look angry anymore. He looked used. Used by the system. Used by fear. Used by accusation. Melissa shook her head quickly. "It was an accident." Judge Judy's eyes narrowed, but the fraud wasn't. Boom. The courtroom exploded emotionally. Even the audience started whispering loudly again. Because suddenly, Judge Judy had said the word nobody else wanted to say: fraud. And Melissa completely broke. "You don't understand what my life is like," she cried suddenly. Interesting emotional pivot, very interesting. Because manipulators often redirect toward personal suffering after factual collapse. Sympathy becomes the final defense mechanism. Judge Judy remained calm, but observant. "What does your life have to do with lying?" Melissa started crying harder now. Real tears this time, but not necessarily for the reason people thought. Notice this carefully. People caught in deception often cry from exposure, not remorse. Huge psychological difference. Melissa covered her face with both hands. "My husband left." The courtroom went quiet again. "He took everything." Pause. "I was drowning financially. And, honestly, for one brief second, courtroom softened again, because human suffering is complicated, very complicated. Even dishonest people sometimes experience real pain. Judge Judy understood that better than anyone. But then, Melissa whispered something that changed everything again. "I saw an opportunity." Dead silence, pure dead silence. And the moment those words left her mouth, she realized what she had just done. She confessed, not fully, but enough the construction worker slowly looked up at her. And honestly, the pain on his face changed the entire emotional atmosphere of the courtroom. Because this wasn't just money anymore. This was betrayal. Public betrayal. Melissa started shaking again. I didn't mean for this to happen. Judge Judy cut her off instantly. No, cold, sharp, controlled. You meant exactly for this to happen. And suddenly, Melissa began crying harder than anyone had seen all day, because for the first time since entering court, performance was over.